for providing me opportunity to share my views. This session focuses on how to write the research paper. Before start, I would also like to thank Veljako Milunovic. I have used his paper in preparing this presentation. So this session will be helpful to the research scholars in writing their research papers. Generally we do some experimentation, and then it becomes a question from where I should start, what I should write. And to answer all those questions we have this session. So the first topic is selection of the title. Here we will discuss what should be the title of any research paper. Then the structure of the abstract, what should be the contents of the abstract that we will be discussing. Then we will discuss about the structure of the written paper. So after abstract we have introduction, then literature review, then the proposed methodology, method of experimentation, result analysis, there may be some simulational analysis, and then conclusion and references. So everything will be discussed under the structure of the written paper. And then we will also discuss about what should be the caption of the table or the figure, or in other words how to write the caption for the table or figure. And then based on my experience I will give some suggestion or hints while writing the paper or while the experimentation also. So before writing the paper you may use these suggestions, after and during writing the papers also these suggestions will be useful. So first point is selection of the title. The title should be both didactic and lapidary. So didactic means if someone reads the title of the paper, he must be able to figure out what is the essence of the basic idea and main contribution of the paper without reading our paper. So that is one thing. And another thing is the title will make the reader to think deeply over the philosophy of the contribution. So these things we have to consider while writing the title or selecting the title or framing the title. So the basic idea that must be covered, and what is the main contribution, and this thing everyone should be able to understand without reading our paper. So title should not be like this. So this is one sample title, some issues in memory consistency modeling. So this title looks like that some survey paper is written and people would tend to stay away from this paper. And what will be the consequence of such a bad title? A good idea may not be noticed by the research community, and you will contribute something, but afterwards someone will reinvent the same thing and he will get the credit instead of you. So please remember, while giving the title should be a proper one. So title may be like this. So this is one sample example of the title: a hybrid evolutionary approach to construct optimal decision trees with large data sets. So here this title suggests that large data sets are handled, and what is the objective is to construct the optimal decision tree. So the problem is of constructing optimal decision tree while using the large data sets. And what technique is applied here? A hybrid evolutionary approach. Evolutionary means genetic algorithm like technique is used in combination with the decision tree, so that's why it's a hybrid approach. So the reader can understand that some evolutionary technique is applied in combination with the decision tree to handle the large data sets and for constructing the optimal decision tree. The problem with the large data sets is, as the size of the data set increases, the decision tree becomes bigger. So the size of the decision tree also increases with the size of the data set. And what we have to do is we have to build the optimal decision tree. We don't want the big decision trees. So this is the example of I cannot say a good title, but how the title should be. Next point in the discussion is abstract. So the abstract of the research paper should have these following elements. First is problem statement of research under consideration. So you have to write what problem you are going to handle in your research. A short list of existing solution and what is their drawback from point of view of the above defined problem statement. So whatever problem statement you have, and what are the existing solutions for that problem statement, and what are their advantages, disadvantages, or drawbacks, you can say. Essence of the proposed solution and why it is expected to be better under the same conditions. So we'll just go back to the example of this one. So here the problem statement is handling the problem statement is constructing optimal decision tree on large data sets or using large data sets. So what problem is handled here is construction of the optimal decision trees with the large data set is the problem statement. Of course the problem statement is vast, but I am telling you very small part. Then a short list of existing solutions. So what are the existing solution to handle the large data sets and constructing the optimal decision tree that are to be mentioned here. Then essence of the proposed solution and why it is expected to be better under same condition. So here essence of the solution. So what is the solution? Solution is to use the genetic algorithm in combination with decision tree to handle the large data set and to construct the optimal decision tree. So essence of the proposed solution is hybridization of genetic algorithm and decision tree, and why it is expected to be better. The genetic algorithm performs global search, the decision tree performs local search. So local solution may not be a perfect solution, may not be an optimal solution, but when you use the global search method, then it is expected that you may get the optimal solution. So you have to write it here as a essence why it is expected to be better under the same condition. Then the next point is what type of analysis was done to show that the proposed solution is really better than any of the existing one from both performance and complexity point of view. So here you have to write what experimentation you have done, with which method, which technique you have applied, and what are the performance readings you have taken, and how that is to be written in the abstract in very short. Then next point is what are the major numerical highlights of the analysis. So the last point is how much performance improvement you have got, that is to be written in the numbers. So you can write in terms of percentage improvement in the performance. So previously the performance was 80%, now our method gives 82, 83 or maybe 85% or whatever the improvement, that is to be mentioned here. Abstract size. Now the abstract size is generally specified by the conference or journal where you have to send the paper. So generally whenever some preliminary investigation is done based on your proposed technique, we can communicate the paper to the conference, and when we do the rigorous experimentation, at that time the results are communicated to the journal. So if the conference or journal says that it is a 50-word abstract, then we have to put one sentence for each of these. So A will have one sentence, B will have one sentence, D and E will have one sentence. And if the abstract is allowed for 150 words, then each part will be explained by 3 to 4 sentences. Here, while writing the abstract, you have to note that the language should be simple, conciseness should be there. All small statements you should use concise statements, and it should be declarative form. The declarative sentence structure you have to use, and it should be in the present tense. Okay, so that is all about the abstract. Now we will move towards the structure of the paper after the abstract. So the first part in the structure of the paper is introduction. So what should be there in the introduction? Introduction is to include the basic facts needed to tune the reader to the paper. So in many cases it may be possible that the reader of the paper may not be expert in your field. So to tune the reader into your paper, first you need to give all the basic things regarding your research in the introduction. Okay, so we'll see one example. So this is the one sample paper. Here in introduction, of course the paper is same, that is the hybrid evolutionary approach. Here in introduction, this is related to data mining, so it discusses about the data mining, then the decision trees, basics of the decision trees are mentioned here, why decision tree, then what are the methods to handle the large data, they are mentioned in short here, then why the size of the tree should be smaller, that is also mentioned here, and then the decision tree algorithm is mentioned here, how decision tree is constructed. Then the next topic explains about the genetic algorithm, as this is the evolutionary approach, how genetic algorithm works. So it gives basic facts about the genetic algorithm, and then the hybrid decision tree is mentioned here. Like this, the introduction section includes the basic fact needed to tune the reader with the paper, or it may be your presentation. So next point in the structure of the paper is the literature. So what is literature review? Literature review is a brief survey of major existing solution from the available literature, and it also contains the criticism of the existing solution with their advantages and disadvantages. So why we go for literature review? We have to underline the deficiencies of the existing techniques with respect to our research. Whatever is your research topic, you have to show that the current techniques have some deficiencies, and that's why we have to go for the new technique. And in other words, we can say that literature review helps us in identifying the gaps in the research. So whatever is the gap, after literature review you can find out the research gaps and you can work on those gaps. So there is scope for the research due to the research gaps found. So here it is mentioned that based on these deficiencies the problem statement is defined. So in other words, I explain it as finding out the research gap, and based on the research gap we can do the research, that is nothing but the problem statement. So how to write the literature review? So these are some of the guidelines. So we have to start the literature review with introduction to the research topic, and we have to do it with the major research topic, that is in the broader perspective we have to write. Then discuss the general importance of your topic in the field. So what is, so first you will write about your research topic, you will introduce your research topic, and you will write about the importance of your topic in your field. Then you have to use the studies in the literature review as a evidence that your research is an important one. So generally whenever we are working on some research issue, we need to find out whether our research proposal is relevant or not. So the literature review gives evidence about the validity of our research problem or importance of the research problem on which we are working. So this is the evidence. Then next one is latest papers are more important. So you have to focus on the latest techniques used by the various researchers, because discussing about the techniques which were applied 4-5 years before, maybe 8 to 10 years before, is not required, and you have to discuss about the latest papers. Of course few old papers in your area are also important. So by study you may understand that this paper may be old but is very important and I should include, and or in other words you can say you cannot exclude that paper from integrating it in the research review. Then you can add such a old paper also. And the best way to decide it is, you can find out that if such a paper is cited by the maximum well-known researchers in that field, then it is very important paper and it must be included in our literature review. So organizing the literature review, general to specific. So first we have to discuss about the broad. It's like a funnel approach. You will discuss your research topic in broad and then you will narrow it to the specific topic. So literature review. After doing all these things, after reviewing the literature, summarize what has been done and what has not been done and what need to be done. So at the end of review, what you have to summarize: what has been done, what has not been done, and what needs to be done, so which will give you the further line for the research. To sum, a literature review should include introduction, summary, and critique of journal articles, justification for your research topic, and the hypothesis for your research project. Now this is very important. The literature review will support you in justifying your research topic and the hypothesis. So hypothesis is nothing but the solution that you are going to apply to solve the problem. So it will help you in doing this. So literature review is what? Review will include the introduction, the summary of the techniques, and critique of the journal articles, and it will also justify the research topic and the hypothesis that you are going to use for your research. So what are the common errors made in literature review? So there are some common errors. Review is not logically organized. So the review must be logically organized. So for example, you may classify the different techniques to solve the problem. Like at some place the similarity measures may be used. So you have to club all the solutions using similarity measures as a one subsection. Then some soft computing techniques are used, so you have to club the methods at one point where GA, fuzzy, neural are used, and you can classify those. Like this, the logical sequencing should be there. Review is not focused on most important facets of the study. So review must focus on most important facets of the study. Review doesn't relate literature to study. So irrelevant topics are added in the literature review. So that is also a error. Too few references or outdated references. So you should have I think around 25 to 40 or maybe depending upon the conference 15 to 25 or 30 references should be there for the this review paper. You may have 50 to 100 references also, but for the research paper you may have 15 to 25 references, and they may not be the outdated references, but references should be based on the latest work done in our area. Review is not written in author's own words, so generally people have a tendency to write as it is from the any paper in the author's own words. It must be, you have to read the paper, and whatever conclusion you have drawn, those are to be written in your own words. So in the literature review you have to read the paper and write whatever is there in your own word and not copied or as it is. The review reads like a series of disjointed summaries. So review should be a continuous series. It should not be disjointed. Some point is there and afterwards there is no link and you have placed some point. It should not happen. All the points must be linked. Review doesn't argue a point. Review doesn't argue a point. So the review should be up to the proper points, and you have to critique, or you have to argue on the points. Recent references are omitted. So latest development is not included in the literature review. It is similar to the outdated references. So you need to take care of these errors while writing the literature review. So the next point is the plagiarism, and it is taken from the Galvin's paper. Not paper, it is a book actually, and I have given references at the end. Using another writer's words without proper citation. This is called a plagiarism. This is one type of plagiarism, using another writer's words without proper citation. So you need to cite everything. Here I have given that all sources used must be cited in the literature review. So from you may get some material from the book, from some site, from research paper, journal paper, conference paper. It must be cited, and the paper must be listed in the reference list. So there are two methods for citation. One method is like this. This 5 is indicating the number in the reference list. So this fifth paper in the number list is C. Labovitz. And another method is you can cite by using author's name and the year of publication. So both methods according to the journal requirement you have to use. So both methods I have shown here with the example. Okay, so we'll go back to our point. So using author's ideas without proper citation, citing source but reproducing exact word without quotation marks. So as discussed earlier, you have to write in your own words. You cannot use the original author's words. But in some cases you cannot write in your own word, or the statement given in that research paper is so important that you want to use the exact words. In that case, what you can do is you can put those words in the double quotes. So whenever you have to reproduce the exact words of the author of the research paper while writing the literature review, what you have to do, put the words in the double quotes, so that will not be considered as a plagiarism. Of course you have to cite and you have to mention that this and this author has mentioned that, and in double quotes his words. Borrowing the structure of another author. So many times people tend to use the ready-made diagrams. The diagram may be so complicated, so the research scholars don't want to write, so draw the diagrams, so they just copy the diagram someplace from some place. It is not allowed. Actually it is copyrighted material, and without the permission of the author you cannot use the images from any paper or any reference source. So you need to get the permission, or you need to redraw the diagram in your own fashion, then and then only it is accepted, otherwise it is called plagiarism. Then borrowing all or part of another student's paper or author's paper, that is also a plagiarism. Using a paper writing service or having friend, okay, that is also plagiarism. So you have to write on your own. So structure of the paper, the point is references, how to write the references. So we have already seen. So you have to write the reference like this: first the name of the authors, comma, and then the title of the paper, and then the conference proceeding or journal name, and the year of publication, and you can write the page number. So the different journals have different style, accordingly you have to manage this. So if you are writing the paper in the Microsoft Word format, then you can use the table to add the references, and then you can hide the table, that is the borders, because if you will not use the table, then this and these things get intermixed, and then it becomes very difficult to do the setting. If you will use the table, then this number, reference number, and this reference, they are separated nicely, and the presentation in the paper becomes quite good, and it takes less time also for the setting. If you are using LaTeX, then use of bibliographic databases is good, because even if you will change the sequence, you are not supposed to sequence of the papers, automatically the numbering will be